Hello, everyone. Uh, we will start a little bit early because we're a little bit time boxed here with the next talk. So let's start with this presentation about the great OBS migration. My name is Adam Majer. I work for BCL. Joining me today, I managed to drag in Stephan Barth. He's working for maintenance. And Adrian Schröter, he works on OBS, and he sends his regrets again. So today we have an agenda. Stephan will introduce the motivation of this project. Then we'll talk about some terminology, the goals that at least I see that are important, some of the workflows that we are developing, workflows that you could be using, not just these ones, but you could do anything else, I guess. The timeline when this has to be kind of working, and what is the current state of things, and maybe some tips and tricks. And after that, we'll have the questions. So prepare the questions. So Stephan, you can start with the motivation.
Yes. Okay, so you might wonder why we're doing this now and maybe a bit late for some, and also with some kind of pressure. So it was basically decided 4 years ago to do that. I think there have been requests to do it even before, but actually there was no real direction and coordination and pushing this forward. And eventually we developed Micro 6.0, 6.1, it moved to maintenance, and all of that created a lot of problems, back and forth, syncing of packages and so on. And release management was affected, for example, and also maintenance. So we kind of asked, should we decide about it if we really want it? And actually when, and 16.0 is kind of a major code service, so it makes sense to do such changes for that. And yes, besides that, I think the original idea was to have lower the bar for kind of drive-by contributions or for new joiners that are familiar with Git but don't want to learn OSC, or it's like steep learning curve, as you know. We also will have atomic project changes, which OSC version control was able to provide. And maybe also important to stress, we're using an open source tool or open source tools like Gitty and Git. And last not least, avoiding duplication efforts on the user interface, which is also highly important. To do not have too many user interfaces. So I'm handing back to Adam.
And there's still, if you still have motivation here, you can contact us on Slack. You can search for Git packaging, and you'll find this channel. And you can ask questions there and get feedback. We also have weekly open doors. You can join. So go to Slack, ask us to join this meeting. This is just open, like the SLFO open door. It's actually in the same time slot. It just alternate weeks. So let's talk about a little bit about terminology. And we need to talk about terminology because we call the different things the same names. So when we talk about Git, people think about GitHub. And in our world, GitHub is the upstream sources. So of the official sources, the sources without any build specifications. That is upstream sources. Then the Git package sources are the upstream sources, plus the, for example, build specification. Mostly it's a spec file. Both could be in Git, right? And now we also have Git project sources. So this is a bunch of package sources plus the build configuration for the project itself. And in SUSE, we talk about branches a lot. And by branches, we always mean the OBS branch command, right? So I'm working on my branch. It's like I branch something, etc., etc. And this is this OBS branch command, and this has nothing to do with the Git branch command. Like there's no Git branch command. The Git branch, the Git branch is just a label of a commit. So you can think of it more like a DNS. So instead of memorizing the hash, you have a nice label. And that's what the branch means in this talk and in Git in general. What is Git for OBS? So in OBS, we currently have all this together, the package sources, the project definitions, the builds, the binaries, the signatures, the signers, I guess, and the publishers. The reviews are there as well. And the point of this project is to move the package sources, the project sources, the reviews, and everything associated with the sources, the workflows out of the OBS, and let OBS be the builder and the publisher. How do you connect the two? You can connect the two with just the SCM sync metadata for the project. So here's an example for Cockpit project Git. If you go to this URL with a web browser, you'll get to the project Git, which lists all the packages, etc. I'll get to it in a second. But OBS requires this URL plus the actual hash followed by the either branch or tag or commit ID. You can use anything, but you have to be specific here. It doesn't actually use the default one, so you have to specify this the branch you want to build. So what is a Git project source repository? The Git project source repository is just a bunch of files. So you have your project conf, and I have a project config that is all not so confusing at all, which is just a configuration file. Maybe I should rename this. Speaking about terminology, not confusing. We have a staging config file, etc., and we have packages which are submodules. So OBS downloads this, expands everything, and it basically in OBS it looks like current project. But in this case, we since we're using Git, we can have different branches, and a project with different branches it makes sense only if the project has a common history. So in this case, maybe SLFO has a common history, and at some point you want to separate submissions between the different histories of the project, right? So the main is continuous product development. 1.2 would be the C16. And then the package sources in Git. What do these look like? It's very similar to what we have currently in OBS. You have a spec file, you have your upstream sources. We want to have these upstream sources, if you want to have them as a tarball, those should be in Git LFS. We have Git attributes to define these automatic filters, etc. These are generated with you can put them in manually, or you can generate them by OBS Git init, for example. We even have a feature that your upstream sources could be a submodule pointing to GitHub somewhere, and OBS will still download this. So we can't have this in release project in released products like Tumbleweed. This is for policy reasons, because the upstream could just in that case the sources could disappear. But this is something we could talk about. For example, having a mirror of the upstream sources in our local Git and pointing this there, for example, so we don't have to store the tarballs themselves. So that is the structure. That is the terminology. And the goals of the project. Maybe that's not the motivations as much. But for me, these goals are my motivating factor. I don't want to have dependency on the UI itself as part of the workflow. So currently we have workflows that are embedded in the OBS, and some are hidden somewhere via some other pipelines that are running somewhere, and they're not really visible. And this becomes always an issue during certifications times. At least I've heard that it becomes an issue during certification times, because the user interface becomes like they want to move forward, for example, but we have certifications where we document our processes, and those are fixed, and we can't modify them. So our certifications are constraining the development of other parts of the project, for example, like this. So the goals of this project is to move the dependencies for source code management to only depend on things like Git, maybe Git LFS. Those are pretty stable. If something happens there, I mean, SUSE is probably a very small part that would break. The entire world breaks here at this point. We could depend on things like GPG signatures, in this case, to be reasonably stable. They haven't changed much in 20 years. And we want to depend on business logic that we define, business logic that governs how we update our packages in our projects, how we update the software, the life cycles, etc. This is something that we want to depend on. We don't want to depend on the user interface. User interface, like we're using Gitty, so we don't want to embed ourselves into the Gitty UI. So for example, if upstream changes some behavior, it should not affect our workflows. Even if we want to move to a different UI in the future, let's say GitLab or some other one exists or whatever, it should not be as a painful process as it is currently when we have to move the SCM out of OBS. Some people even talked about Bugzilla replacement. Like Gitty has a nice issue tracker. Maybe we could use it. Maybe not for SUSE, but maybe OpenSUSE. In OBS, one issue is users go to OBS, to Tumbleweed somewhere, they find their package that is broken, and then they complain in the comments. And that is not the right place. And if they go to, if we have this in Gitty, they could go to Tumbleweed, they can find the package, click on it, it goes to the tracker in the Devo project, and then they can complain there. It's a little bit better place, I think, for complaints or advices. So the workflows. The workflows I was presenting last year at this conference, they were not yet developed. There was no prototype even. There was just some ideas, and now they're pretty much working. The first one is working. The second one is pretty much working. So the first one is what I call a direct workflow. In this workflow, you have your project Git with the submodules, and you have your packages repositories. In this case, the project Git follows the packages. So let's say you have your packages. Let's say they're using a branch main, and your project follows this branch. So when you update your package, some new commits are merged into the branch. The package is updated, the submodules are updated. The OBS then automatically pulls this and builds the binaries. So this is suitable for maybe Devo projects if you do direct pushes there, or home project or something like this. Then there's a second workflow that is much more suitable for product development. So in this workflow, the project leads the packages. So you still want to make changes to a package. So you take your package sources, you clone them, you do your changes, you create a pull request. This pull request then makes a corresponding pull request in the project that updates the sources to your pull request in the package. And then we can do reviews on the new project Git. For example, the build results, open QA, the package Git is then useful, for example, for legal reviews, stuff like that, like currently happens. So in this case, when the reviews are complete, the project Git is merged, and the branches of the packages are updated to the submodule hashes. So this means that your pull request to the package is kind of like automatically merged, because the hash in your submodule is your pull request, right? So it automatically is included as a consequence of this order. And in this workflow, the policies that drive these reviews are embedded in the project itself. So one project could have different policies, different review policies, different build staging projects or whatever. And this is defined in the project itself. This is not defined in the tooling. We want to have this configurable. So I have this terrible diagram that I presented last year, and I thought that AI would be useful, and it didn't make this better. So I'm a little bit disappointed. So in the package pull request, what we do, this is just a visualization of the pull request, what I described just a second ago. You have your package, you make a clone of the package, you make your changes, you make a pull request, let's say to factory, and you expect this to be merged at some point. What actually happens when you make your pull request to factory is that there's a like a bot comes along and it makes a clone of your factory, updates the submodule package to point to the same hash as your pull request to the the submodule is updated to the pull request for your package. So it's included in the pull request for the project itself. Maybe there's some config, which means like project config changes. Then it builds this this new project, maybe just part of it, depending on the policy of the project itself. You do your integration tests. It could be done with OpenQA. And when everything is satisfied, legal is satisfied, and it's merged into the factory, this updates your package itself, the branches. So when I said branches are just labels of the hashes, this is how it's merged, because it just updates the labels of your package to the pull request ones. Yeah. There are other workflows I just want to touch very briefly. So you can update the project Git manually if you like. We would have to kind of do something like this for adding new packages or removing packages, because this will just touch the project Git. There's no pull request to the package itself. You can have package Git in an OBS project. So, but this is not really going to be working with our new workflows here. This is just something you could have. You could branch a Git-based project. So a Git-based project that exists in OBS, it's still in OBS. It's copied in, right? It's a read-only something, and you can link to it. For example, if you're worried about link back to your home or something, that continues to work. If you really want, you can still branch it, but you will not be able to contribute back anything, obviously. And very quickly, what is the current status of this project? So we've converted about 300 some packages to Git only. This is approximately a dozen or so factory projects. These projects are run with the direct workflow. I've deployed the pull request workflow on 2 so far, I think on Friday, but yeah, I want to deploy this on the rest. I've noticed a little bit of a missing feature, so before I deploy it on the rest of the projects. So if you do a submit request to Cockpit, it will now build. In the build, you get build results. You can get the binaries, you can test them if you want, and it will also automatically merge if the reviews are done. I found that community is mostly not the blocker in these in the Git conversion. There was some apprehension because there was a different approach to this, where we were trying to get rid of dev projects as dev projects. That was, I think, last year. There was an attempt to do this, I guess, and the community was very confused about this approach. So some are still viewing this like, oh, Git means that my dev project package becomes factory package, and it's like, no, you keep your dev project as it is. It's just in Git, and at that point, most people are just calm down a little bit. So one of the consequences of moving these projects to Git was that we lost devel project definitions in factory. Because in OBS, you cannot set the devel XML element on a package in factory anymore when the source package is in Git, and some internal problems there. So we had to move devel project definitions to OpenSUSE/factory. This is a project Git in Gitty already, and currently it only has devel project definitions, and factory bot is using this for verifications and checks. OSC maintainer, this one is currently broken if you're looking at packages that are in Git, because it will get stuck and report Dominic as the maintainer of everything. OSC branch is blocked with a very helpful attribute for these Git-based packages. So if you try to branch, like currently, if you try to branch OSC, I mean the OBS branch, not the Git branch. So if you go OSC branch OpenSUSE factory or just cockpit, you'll get a message that this package is now developed in this Git package on Gitty. This is the repository to contribute to, and it's built in this project on OBS. So you're not lost when you try to branch. So it's blocked, the branches is blocked, but with a very helpful message. The staging bot is deployed, so it will, if you ask a review on Gitty, a build review of a pull request to a project Git, it will build it. And LegalDB bot is also deployed on the internal and external Gitty instances. So we have this running already. And Stephan will now talk about what we are doing on the maintenance side in internal Gitty.
Exactly, because as I said before, product development and maintenance are not working so well with the current hybrid mode, and as I said, the syncing back and forth. So we decided, in order to avoid any bottlenecks that we identified with Micro 6.0 and 6.1 maintenance, to start a prototype, which is basically a branch of 16.0 from about 6 weeks ago. We don't update it as well. As I said, it's a prototype in the playground, and it's working pretty well. And also what Adam mentioned before is the pull request workflow bot is being implemented next week, for example, and other things like staging. If you're not familiar with staging, so product development is first staging packages or new submissions in order to check if they build and can be included in the product. And since Micro 6.0, maintenance is using this staging mechanism as well. And this created some challenges, and also the syncing was not working well. But I talked about this before. If you want to take a look, at least the people that are working for SUSE can take a look internally. It's quite unspectacular, but as it's supposed to be. It's looking like /16.0, but it's really native Git, and everything that is supposed to happen there will be Git only. Yeah. So you can take a look at those links, or and also see the build results for the respective code stream or the product. So why do we actually do this besides trying it out as early as possible? So we have a lot of tooling around it. We need to prioritize updates, as you know, make it visible in Smelt, also for QA to pick updates. Auto build needs to be able to review. So because this is kind of the first setup in Git native and product and maintenance. Others like LegalDB has been implemented, which we can make use of. And maintenance checkers who check that packages are installable in all kind of variations, which is highly important, so customers do not find it out. And Smelt and Smash I mentioned before. Yeah. And last but not least, adapting the necessary bots, because in Git they supposedly need to be adapted to the tool. It's not a major effort, but all of that needs to be done, checked, several times, and we have kind of a deadline to have this working, this prototype, July 8th. Until then, we will have major efforts working on that. And this is also the reason why, for example, Devil projects were not a priority as of now. And also, a lot of people were working on beta 3 and beta 4 submissions. And I think now, with some things being more stable and not like the high load of submissions anymore, we can go back to Devil projects and give back to Adam.
So the next steps. The next step is actually to build a pipeline of packages going from the Devil projects to factory to SLFO and to Leap, of course. That doesn't mean we have to convert all the Devil projects first. It means we need to provide a small possibility and a process of doing the submissions. So the first thing we'll need to do is like very shortly, is to have a parallel submission bot. So you will do a pull request to factory on Git side, but the request will just still go via OBS and will be accepted when the OBS submission is accepted. But this will allow us to debug factory bot with the same requests at the same time on the Git side. When the review workflow is working on the Git side, we can then switch these packages to Git only, and factory can become kind of like this combination of the regular project and the sources of the Git project. So it will still be the same sources, but some of them will come from Git and some will still come from OBS. And then we can slowly move the packages over and increase the Git source pool here. So the priority is to develop this pipeline so it actually functions. Then we can expand it. Another thing that is important here is to be able to mirror the pull repository from the external Gitty to the internal one, because we're doing submissions, let's say from Devil projects to SLFO or from factory to SLFO, and we need to be able to do this, and we don't have the OBS bridge where we just say use the opensuse.org/factory, etc., and send this to SLFO. We have to have it's a mirror basically. Another thing I want to do as a kind of a very important thing for factory as well is to have this, it's a very nice word, hierarchical package structure. So it's a nested package structure. If you look at larger project Git, like SLFO, and I guess factory will be another one, where you have thousands and thousands of packages. Currently, this is all as a flat listing, so like in OBS. So every update updates this entire Git tree every time. So after thousands of submissions, you end up with project Git that is growing because the tree is updated every time. Every time you do one submodule change, for example, it updates the entire tree. It's a new tree object in Git. So this is why it's also growing. And also in Gitty, the UI is not very friendly if you have 16,000 some lines, because it like when you scroll down, it loads some more, and then you scroll down, load some more. It's probably much easier to find stuff if you have a hierarchy of packages. So let's say package/a/ansible or something like that, right? And another thing is we need to fix some bugs that exist now, like if you want to add a package new package to the project Gits currently, it will not work perfectly. You end up adding it manually in the end, because you can't, if you create a new repository and it's empty, there's nothing to add, right? There's nothing to add because there's no commits yet. And later it's becomes like a catch-22 to add. So this is like one small corner case, but it's an important one. And I didn't actually have any complaints about this, even though I see people adding it to project Git manually. So, and as Stephan said, when do we want this actually working? We need to have this working by, like everything, by end of the summer this year. That would be ideally, because we need to have maintenance for SLE16 working. So it has to be working already at the beginning of summer, the maintenance updates. And this is basically just the same process as a maintenance update. The next update will have, I guess in this forum, this type of forum is at the OpenSUSE conference. So anybody that is joining there, hopefully will have a lot more things to update. And one of the things we want to have for OpenSUSE conference is to have native OpenSUSE factory package submissions working already by then. So this brings me to the end of what is now the status. And I want to mention how to Gitty. Because one of the things that we are always a victim of is we learn one way of doing things, and then we don't learn a better way of doing things, right? So we are trained in one way of doing things, and then we assume that is the only way of doing things. So how do you create a pull request? We all know how to do a pull request. You go to Gitty, you do a fork, you do your changes to the fork, you do a pull request, you forget about the fork, and it's sitting there forever. So there is actually a much better way of doing a pull request. It is to clone the package instead of making a fork, do your changes locally, and then you push to a magic ref, like here. There's a documentation for this. It's not intimidating. It's just one little page, right? This is actually a process contributed to Gitty, I think by Alibaba. That's why it's called agit, because they use it extensively. I think 3 years ago they contributed this. All it does is create a pull request for you. So when you push to your branch, /for/target branch/topic, right? So this allows you to create multiple pull requests if you have different topics. If you push to the same ref, it will just update the pull request, right? And this is how you create a pull request without creating a branch, creating a fork, right? So you don't have to have your home with a bunch of stuff that you forgot about what to do. And this is actually superior to doing the OBS way, where we do OBS branch, we work on this branch, then we submit it back when it's ready, right? When it's ready, we submit it back. This way, when you do your clone, you do some changes, maybe it's not ready, right? You do your pull request. In the pull request, this is your branch. The pull request is a branch of the package already. So the pull request workflow bot will automatically grab this and will start to build it, right? If you want. You can specify that it's work in progress. Like you don't want to have it reviewed yet, it's work in progress. But it signals that you're working on it, right? There's dozens of times when there's some kind of an urgent bug, let's say for OpenSUSE even, that happens in a package. Mostly it's a security issue, and it's maybe upstream already released a new version, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. So I do the branch thing, and then I notice, oh, somebody already submitted it because it's already finished. But if they did a pull request, then I know that they're already working on it instead of in their home. Sometimes you see it like there's 2 submit requests, maybe 3 even for the same thing within a few hours. And it's because people don't know that what somebody else is working on. So please don't do forks. Do a clone, make a pull request. If you're shy, put like work in progress. I'm not ready for this to be merged yet. And just work there. So at least you're telling others that something is working. And if you abandon this, like you don't want to do any more of this, at least somebody else knows that there is some work in progress. Maybe it's useful. Maybe they can continue. So this is how you facilitate, I think, collaboration without doing forks. Do a pull request. And preferably with a push, not a fork, right? So this is one tip I have here. Another tip I have is that with OBS, we are stuck with APIs. If you want to query the state of a project, let's say the sources or how things changed, we are stuck with what the OBS API provides, right? So this is what we learned. In the Git world, you don't want to be doing this. The Git world is you pull things and your API is local, right? So if you want to introspect objects or whatever, history, however magical way you like, do it after the clone, right? If you have a bot that does the same thing for the same repository over and over again, maybe don't delete the clone, just fetch the new objects, right? You have the hashes for, let's say, the pull request, just fetch that and the old ones are reused, or do a shallow clone if you like, but then you lose the history, so you can't introspect so easily. So just keep it around. It's not supposed to be big, especially if you turn off LFS resolution. So maybe don't use LFS if you don't need the actual upstream sources, right? If you really need Gitty API, it's using a Swagger generated API. So API link that is here is also on every page on the bottom right-hand corner, API. And if you find the API there, you can even try it in the web interface there. So this is some of the things we did on the source side. On the build side, there's also improvements. So if you have an RPM and you want to know where it came from, you can do an RPM query with the query format, and there's a VCS field, and you will get the URL where it was built, like the sources of the package, and the revision, which is this very helpful hash. So this is meant to be unique. That's why it's a little bit longer than SHA-1. The build results API is also augmented here. So we have SCM sync information in the build results and also the hash information of the project. So that means if you update the project and the project is the head of the project is this hash, and then you look at the OBS API and it doesn't match, then maybe OBS didn't pick it up yet for whatever reason. And maybe you need to wait a few more seconds. And the repo MD XML will also get tags that will identify which project these binaries are coming from. So you don't have to inspect the individual packages. So maybe we have a few minutes for some Qs and maybe some As. So I have a first question. How many people are actually using Gitty ever? Okay, a few. Anybody tried to use the new Git workflow? Okay, about the same. So it seems Gitty is used for just the Git workflow. Okay, that makes sense. And I guess we can take a few questions if anybody has a few questions.
Actually, I wanted to add something because I forgot it at the beginning. But since people joined later or on time, actually, but we were asked to start earlier, so a lot of thanks to the people who supported. So starting with vice presidents like Jeff and Peter Ussel, department leads, team leads that really offered people. A lot of are not here, but a few are here. So and also Yoshi Schrein and Lubosch supporting this. It's really, really helpful. We have early adopters, early supporters, and it's really to say a big thanks. And also, last but not least, Daniel Majer is working a lot on OSC to make this as convenient and less impactful as possible. And yeah, wanted to say a big thank to everyone who helped with that up to now.
Yes, the Rudy and others are also working hard on the review tool, so they're ready.
So my question is, and maybe I'm just ignorant, where's the documentation for all of this, right? I've looked and looked many times. I've not found clear and concise documentation that walks packagers, developers through this is how you do this and this is how you do that. So there was some information here in the presentation, but it doesn't seem to be available, or at least I can't find it. And then if it really is not there, why are we not having it and when can we expect it?
Well, we don't really have it. That's the documentation, and because no time. You're welcome to contribute documentation if you like. But let me say from what I see in OpenSUSE contributors or other contributors, right? The workflow is very close to what we have in OBS. So they were very confused about the workflow that was proposed initially, where the pool was pointing, like we had factory package that was sourced in the Devel project, and everyone was confused why the factory package is in a Devel project. How do I update it, etc. That was very confusing, even with the documentation that existed for this. And in this case, the documentation that was written was actually by a community. Jan Egnehart, may have known him. He actually wrote how to contribute to Git workflow. Yeah, similar to this, I guess. But he did this like how not to do the old proposed workflow, how to do it his way because it's better. So basically, this is similar. And yes, the documentation is important, but in the end, it's very similar to what we have. And another problem with documentation is that when somebody writes this documentation, and then you need to change the implementation, which happened a few times, then the documentation is out of date, right?
But to add, it's a real priority, and some people were working hard to implement this. Others need to document it, and any volunteers really appreciate it. And I will push for this, and I also promise this continuously. Trainings, documentation, open doors are there. It's not enough, but definitely you are heard, and we will work on this. And also when we're rolling out more and more and convert to Git the Devel project. Sorry.
And for open source conference, we'll have a workshop at the open source conference. So by then we should have some better documentation, at least for the workshop, right? So I see approval.
So basically, you're expecting people to adapt a new workflow and learn everything by osmosis. That just doesn't work. I'm
No,
sorry.
that's not what we said. We will work on the documentation as early as possible. Maybe not next week, but the week after, and we will continuously push for that.
So you showed this nice workflow on how to create a pull request, but with the old OBS, it's possible to just create a project, create a package, and upload some random sources. This is how kernel is uploaded to the OBS currently, and like I'm not opposed to uploading sources as a branch in a repository, but where do I find the repository to which I should push the branch?
Yeah, the kernel is a little bit special. We'll need to discuss this. No, I mean, the kernel setup is automated, right?
Yes, but
exactly.
That's not limited to kernel. Like, I mean, I want to package a new file. I have this some program that is not in OBS at all. So I want to create a package somewhere and upload the subset there.
Yeah, there's a utility, Git OBS, whatever in it, and it creates your base project Git, and then you upload it, right? You need to put this in a Devel project, so you need to transfer this repository to a Devel project somewhere. It's the same. It's a very similar process like in OBS. We have to put it in a Devel project. Otherwise, you just have it building just in your home, right? So, is this what you mean? You just build it in your home, right? Like if you want to build it in your home, you can just build it in your home. It's the same.
Like depends on the situation. Sometimes I build it in my home. Sometimes I build it in an unofficial repository that has some software that is not part of the distribution. So you have quite a few of these.
Yeah, I think Adrian started to set up something for you last week and working this out, how this can be actually implemented with a Git workflow. I think we will continue with that definitely. So there's special use cases and we need to adapt there, maybe more than on other things. And it's in scope, so we're working on that.
So, but I would just say that the packages for home projects are not priority. Packages for that are part of DevOps projects, yes. Transferring a new package into a DevOps project, yes, we could have documentation there, but I think it's documented like 3 lines somewhere. But yeah, that's basically it. You create a repository, you put it into a DevOps project, right?
Yeah, I guess this is the problem with lack of documentation. Like, I asked about this and I couldn't get any answer. So maybe the next week or the week after or next month, who knows?
So if I have a project transferred to Git, like Dev language is Lua, I don't see basically anything in OBS. It tells me like this is maintained in Git, go away. And so, for example, I don't see the build results anywhere.
It's in the monitor page, right? So you only see them in the monitor page in the U.
Only failed, okay, monitoring.
Exactly. So that is what is linked in the Lua project on the top of the DevOps project is to the monitoring page of the OBS, because that is the only part of the UI that actually displays packages that are not stored in OBS database.
Okay, it is well hidden. Oh, okay, I will try that.
But this should be linked in the DevOps project itself. Like in the Git DevOps project, there is a link to this on top, right below the title. Right.
That's so nice because the monitoring page is broken for years because it was converted to some new fancy HTML, and it sometimes very often renders so badly that you can't see anything on the page. It's really difficult to scroll on the page, and it was reported a number of times, and like no one's nothing.
Yes, we want to have 5 minutes. So the what we want to have is SVG build like SVG output for build results that then you can embed into packages or into as part of the project Git itself. This way we can have the build results in Git itself. That is what is coming. So that is the replacement for the monitoring page, right? If you can imagine it. Maybe there will be an update for the OpenSUSE conference. Or at least it will be working by then, yeah. So with no other questions, thank you for your attention, and we are eager for the next presentation.